Mrs. McLean?
Present.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mr. Sharp? Dr. Smits?
Here.
Mrs. Weingarten?
Present. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's great to see such a big crowd in the audience for this great meeting. Okay, we have before you minutes from the October 16th regular meeting. Get a chance to review them.
I move we approve.
Second.
Any questions, comments, corrections? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Gherkin?
Aye.
Mr. Keller?
Aye.
Mrs. McLean?
Abstain, I was absent.
Mr. Schneider?
Aye.
Mr. Sharp?
Aye.
Dr. Smits?
Aye.
Mrs. Weingarten?
Aye. We also have before you tonight's agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Any corrections, changes?
No.
Any tablecloths? No? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gherkin?
Aye.
Mr. Keller?
Aye.
Mrs. McLean?
Aye.
Mr. Schneider?
Aye.
Mr. Sharp?
Aye.
Dr. Smits?
Aye.
And Mrs. Weingarten?
Aye. Special presentations. Mr. Eccles, would you like to start us off?
It's great to see all these people,
I
isn't
love seeing all these people there.
it? We need to get more cookies. Well, there's a few things we need to cover first. Mary Ann Roth is here. Mary Ann, good to see you in the audience. Why are you here tonight? And the board is excited to hear from you in October
We do
Count.
love October Count.
Huh?
We do love October.
Absolutely, for Columbine October Count. But first, let me read something in behalf of the employees of Columbine. Mary Ann's been nominated and chosen selected as Employee of the Month for our three school districts. I know you worked hard because I know how you are preparing this presentation, so we're going to give you a few minutes to make that presentation. But let me read this first. Mary Ann has been a part of the Columbine family as our administrative assistant for many years after working at Fort Morgan High School. Mary Ann is a friendly face who greets staff, parents, and children throughout the day at the front office. Her skills come into play each year before students arrive for registration. She takes it upon herself to make the registration process efficient while making it a warm, friendly environment for our new and returning students and families. As a teacher, I believe that her expertise in this area is the foundation for our first day success. Staff members, parents, and students are at ease when the first day arrives. Another major task that Mary Ann coordinates is the scheduling of parent-teacher conferences. She flawlessly schedules conferences for students along with their siblings' conferences while making sure a translator is scheduled if one is needed. With her help, Columbine has a high attendance rate. Families trust her as she advocates for them. I have witnessed her ability to problem solve and help parents to feel at ease in life-changing events. I appreciate how she understands the students and families as they grow with us at Columbine. She can often give teachers an overview of the lives of some of our students and their siblings prior to them arriving the first day in our classrooms. This can save precious time. It takes years of being around children in our school community to be able to help assist everyone that she connects with. She treats every child with respect and warmth. She makes that child feel like he or she is the most important person by listening intently. She has a big heart and only wants what's best for children. She's a huge part of our Columbine community by offering a safe, loving, and positive educational environment. As a teacher at Columbine, I'm so thankful for everything Mary Ann does for our school to keep it running smoothly. Mary Ann helps to make Columbine a wonderful place to be. I believe she is well deserving of being recognized as Columbine Elementary Employee of the Month. So come on up, Mary Ann. I'm sorry if I let you believe you can trust me. You know better than that. She believe that? And you look at his face. embarrassed because our total count is just extra high for this, so.
Honestly, it's extremely important, but I learned to treat it as another day. We used to try to schedule picture day on count day, and actually when I first started, it was done manually where you typed in attendance for each class. It was a lot of work. Now, it's not so much. You know what you need to do ahead of time. You know that you run your queries, making sure everybody's coded correctly. And then the students who are gone, you just keep track of. You always get them in if they're registering so that they are there for count day. And I honestly believe that we lost a couple, we gained a couple, but I think we come out about the same.
Well, I wanted to say congratulations to you. I know this is well-deserved, and really glad that you are Employee of the Month this month. It's fantastic.
I'm fortunate, I work with a wonderful staff.
That's great.
Can't trust them, but,
Yeah.
well, how many years have you been with the district? 21 years.
How many years at Columbine?
This is my 20th.
Oh, okay. Wow, fantastic. Well, thanks again for all you do for our students, and, yeah.
Keep your thumb on that principle. That's what I would suggest.
Okay. Well, that was fun. Moving on, our next presentation, Mr. Daniel Cooper is going to talk to us about the Baker Elementary School Unified Improvement Plan.
Okay, perfect. We are on priority improvement, and I'm gonna kind of just go over some kind of the changes that we've kind of implemented this year. I did ask that a few documents be shared with you. I think as far as the priority improvement, the root cause analysis is gonna highlight three challenges that we determined we had coming out of last year and what we plan on doing. And I'm working on refining some of those action steps for our actual UIP document. Some of the changes this year, we have a full-time instructional coach, which is phenomenal. She's actually right now in Harrisburg, attending a 95% training, which is something else we're also looking to bring to Baker. I do monthly surveys of staff. They're anonymous, and I ask for feedback. That's something that we've implemented, and then the nice part about that is I get feedback, and I can work on making necessary improvements. I spend time digging through all that data and then discussing it with the staff in general as to how other ways I can make those improvements. We completely blew up our schedule. We realized that our schedule didn't fit an elementary, is kind of where we were at. And we really needed 90 minutes of reading instruction for first, second, and third grade with the same reading instructor. And so we figured out a way to do that. And in doing so, I started looking at fourth and fifth grade, and I realized, oh, we could make changes there too. Why don't we departmentalize across fourth and fifth grade? Because each of our fourth and fifth grade teachers had one content area that was their passion. A writing teacher, a math teacher, a reading teacher, a science teacher, and then we also added, within the last month, we added a third fifth grade teacher, and she teaches social studies because we had a large number of fifth graders. So now all of our fourth and fifth graders see all of those teachers, and they're teaching their passions, which is really, really cool. That's one of, in my opinion, that's one of the coolest things or changes we've made is yeah, we have teachers that are doing some incredible stuff. So we've done that. We do goal setting every month in reading, math, and writing for every student. We feel goal setting is huge. It's that metacognition where students are thinking about their learning and where they need to go. So we're doing a lot with that. We're doing growth mindset stuff every month. We have our growth mindset days. We are also part of the early literacy grant. We have a consultant. And with that, we also had an evaluation tool, which I did share with you guys. What you'll notice with that evaluation tool is that it has a where we were in August. And when we filled it out, we realized, wow, we are not where feel like we are now, because we filled that out in October. So what we did is we actually highlighted where we feel like we are now. And to give some kind of background there, in August, we had 69 points, which was a total, which was 28% of the total points you could have. In October, we felt like, based on when we filled it out again, we were at 153.5 points, which is 62% of the total points you could have. So we feel like we've made some pretty incredible changes since August, from August to October. Like I said, we did do a root cause analysis. We modeled the same way the state typically comes in and does the root cause. I did that with my building leadership team. We came up with those 3 challenges: a cultural challenge, being we need to focus on school culture, obviously, and in identifying some of our challenges within school culture, I actually also provided you with some data I got from a school culture survey. It's a school culture triage, and what I'm focusing on is those areas where we were under 3.5 points. It was out of 5. One of the things I've said to my staff is I want to be completely transparent about where we are, what we're doing, and same with you guys. This is where my staff, or our staff, feels like we are, and we're doing some great things as far as school culture. We have a fantastic social committee who is rolling out a movie trailer invitation. I mean, it looked like a movie trailer for our Christmas get-together. We're doing a scavenger hunt. I don't know a whole lot about it, but the invitation, I saw the video, was really cool. So we're doing a lot to come together. We're changing how we do some of our staff meetings. So where we're doing team building stuff. I kind of got the idea from Dr. Frasco when I was doing something at Pioneer, and they played Minute to Win It games, and I'm like, okay, I gotta do something like that. So we're implementing that as well, which I'm really excited about. We just had training today on Imagine Learning, which is an intervention program. I'm real excited about that. It's an online program. Us, Baker and Pioneer, are gonna pilot the program. So that's coming. We just got our training in on that today. Testing and technology was another concern. We are getting, kids are writing every day, and we're trying to get kids in front of computers and typing multiple times a week. Our 4th and 5th graders are typing on Chromebooks 5 days a week and writing, so we're making a lot of improvements there. Let's see. I'm trying to go through all my notes. I'm trying to be as quick as I can. We've changed how we do PLCs too. Data-driven instruction is huge. Our PLCs are all about data. The conversations are so cool. I actually, to Deb Smith, our instructional coach, at one of them, I said, this is, in my opinion, exactly what the model of PLC should look like. I mean, we're talking about student data, what we can do, changes we need to make. It was so cool. I wish I could have videoed and just taken a snapshot and sent it to the creators of PLC, because I'm like, that's it. So I'm really excited about those changes. I know I went kind of fast, but I had a lot that I wanted to cover because we're doing so many cool things at Baker. Do you guys have any questions? Sorry, I did go really fast. I tried to include as much stuff. I had a short amount of time, so I wanted to cover it all.
He was directed by one of our employees.
Well, I don't have a question for Mr. Cooper, but I will attest, I mean, I've been to Baker. I went over there when the consultant was there last week, and the data-driven dialogue that was happening there at an elementary level, really, this is almost their first year of being a 1st through 5th grade, with really understanding the data at 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, a lot different than, we're at a different place than we were at last year as far as just understanding data and using those data points to drive instruction. So it was really exciting, and a lot of kudos to the work that they're doing, because they're really working as a team and building together as a collaborative staff.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for the good work you're doing over there.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Is there anything we can do to support you?
You know what? That's a great question. I can't think of anything right now. You guys are always welcome to come see what we're doing. I mean, you're welcome to. I am so proud of the staff we have and the things we're doing. Anytime, come walk through our classrooms. It's incredible. I absolutely love it. So I can't think of anything specific other than to say, come on over anytime you want. We've got really cool stuff happening.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple familiar faces in the crowd. Hi, Cody.
Here's the Exodus.
Yep. Bye, team. You're welcome to stay. We're going to talk a little more about. So we're going to hear about our new Head Start edition with RLH Engineering and Wolf Architects. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you. Just one moment.
Ellie giggles. Somebody's in trouble.
There we go. Thanks for having us. I think it's been a little while since we last presented. I think we're still in the midst of probably working through the grant application and checking all the boxes. I know we were kind of working diligently with the district, and I know Ron, Karen, Mike Lee, everybody put in a lot of effort to try and make that grant application successful. So this is really the update. Now that we've gotten through that process, we've actually been working through design for the last couple of months. So this is what you would consider kind of at the halfway mark of design, ballpark there. So again, for everybody who might not know, my name is Cody Knobloch with Wool Architects.
Jeff Curley, RLH Engineering, I'm the representative.
So we just have a really kind of efficient presentation here tonight. I would say certainly feel free to ask questions as we go, or we save it to the end. I'm open either way. I'll just kind of quickly run through my agenda for what we've talked through. We'll briefly update the overall project schedule. Again, right now we're kind of at the halfway mark of design. We'll give you kind of a recap or a reminder of the overall project budget, fairly simple terms there. And then I'll show you where we've kind of achieved our design development milestone as of last Friday. So I have some just basic site plan, floor plan, and some of the elevations. Certainly in the set that we issued on Friday, there's a lot more detail. We just can't go into all that detail in the time that we have here. So we kept it kind of straightforward for now. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we've been doing with the overall building and structural system, the approach for a pre-engineered metal building system for the roof structure, and I believe that there's an action item on the agenda for you guys tonight. And then a little bit of next steps and what we'll be working on over the next couple of months. So for the schedule, like I had mentioned, September and October, we were working through the early phases of programming with Marcia and the other district administration folks, working through programming and also identifying the standards, similar to many of the processes that we followed for the new middle school and some of the elementary renovations. Again, the design development documents were issued on November 10th. So, and then once we get the pre-engineered metal company, we'll be coordinating further between December and January, and then establishing a set of construction documents to issue publicly for bidding, kind of in the February and March timeframe. At that time, we will also be submitting those documents to the state for permitting. Again, the state is the jurisdiction that does plan review. We will certainly be reviewing with the city of Fort Oregon for utilities, and then, and actually that will be in the next couple of weeks, is our kickoff meeting with the city. And then we will also be submitting for fire plan review. We're anticipating, or we need to have construction starting in the spring of 2018. We don't have firm dates. We've got some things on paper, but as we work through the bidding process and get a contractor on board, we'll kind of lock down that date. And then I think we'll do another update so that we can share with you what the impact to the site will be in the spring. Because obviously school will still be in session. And then we're targeting substantial completion in August 2018. We know that's a date, or a month, or date is yet to be determined, but we know we have to hit that, so. that'll be-
What's substantial completion?
It means that you, as an owner, can occupy the space. So it means that we have a certificate of occupancy from the state, that all the inspections are completed, and you could thus move in, right? You might not be starting school that day, because we might have furniture and other equipment to move in, but that's the date that the construction needs to be complete.
As a brief overview, just to remind everyone of the project budget we're working with. We're working with an overall budget of $3,150,000. That includes a $2.6 million Health and Human Services grant that was acquired by the Head Start program in the district, and some additional district budget of $550,000 to round out that $3,150,000. The estimated construction cost within that budget is $2,520,000, and then the balance of the overall budget is $630,000 for the estimated soft costs in the project for design and all the elements that aren't construction, and that also includes some project contingency to handle things throughout the process from bidding.
And as I transition into the next slides, I kind of show you where we're at with design. I'm sure many of you know and remember, the original grant was submitted before some of the issues in the other modulars were identified. So the original grant number there of 2.6 million. Unfortunately, it was a timing thing when the grant documents were submitted. We couldn't change it. We couldn't go back and add square footage and add to that project budget. So we had to work with what we had. And I think that's why at one point, Ron and Mike had come to you to request the idea of supplementing that budget because of the need that arose from removing the other modulars on site. That being said, we are currently targeting about a 10,500 to 11,000 square foot addition. It will fluctuate as we coordinate further with the pre-engineered metal company and as we kind of lock down the final list of needs from the school. But that's our range at the moment. And I'll kind of point in this direction. So Beaver Avenue is here, and as a point of reference, I think it's Warner Street or Warner Avenue. That is currently lined up here, just off of this drawing. This shows extension of that drive loop and parking spaces. So what we'll be taking to the city to talk to them about, we're kind of assuming in advance until we have a chance to talk to them. We're assuming they're gonna wanna line that up with Warner Avenue. I mean, it just kind of makes sense from a traffic flow perspective instead of having all these offset drive lanes or streets. It adds about 9 or 10 parking spaces and an additional sort of 40 feet or so of what would be the bus drop-off area. We know that bus traffic there for Sherman, not even Head Start programs, but even for Sherman early childhood, is a challenge. So we're trying to extend that as much as possible to offer flexibility for bus drop-off and pickup. I'll just remind you that per the previous slide that we talked about, the budget is tight. So the idea is we're working on this design. We will be working on pricing it so that we can see where we're landing right now. I think at the end of the day, the conversations we've always had with the district is we're going to try and get as much as we can for the money. Okay? So if that means we can't extend east as we like, as we would like. I think the key is to first spend the money in the building. So. The addition is shown here, so that's that 10 to 11,000 square foot addition. The main entry would be here. As a point of reference, the existing north wing of Sherman is right here, so that ends right here. This heavy dashed line represents on the left, or the west side, that's what is all existing where there is no new work. And then everything on the east or right side of that heavy line is all the new addition, paving, and playground area. Playground areas are really a requirement with the Head Start licensing, so we do have to provide playground areas. That's why the thing that would give, if the budget doesn't allow, is the paved vehicular areas. Any questions here? Just a kind of a general floor plan. We've got 6 fundamental classrooms. Those are these 6 here. And then we've got a multi-purpose room. So think of that as sort of the main core storage area. We'll have built-in cabinets, as many as we can afford. And then a space that kind of allows for a flexibility of functions. During inclement weather, that space would need to function as kind of an indoor play area. So we're still working on defining that with the Head Start folks. But it really needs to be that full multi-purpose room. One of the things that we learned from talking to Marcia is toilets are key for the little kids, right? We have to have as many as we can. So we've been trying to accomplish that. I think we're getting there. Again, the main office area is a sequence here as you come in the vestibule. We would check in at kind of a transaction window with the receptionist. The inner set of vestibule doors would be unlocked after you've checked in. So any visitors, it's considered a secure check-in before you're actually allowed into the public space. One of the things you have to keep in mind for this building, with this new entry, you've got 2 main entries to the Sherman building. So we need to make sure that we can manage both of those securely. We have a few offices in here, a new clinic that'll fit 2 cots and a couple of additional single-use restrooms, one for staff and one that's kind of dual-purpose staff and for the clinic. This set of doors here, which faces the south, that would be the main access to the playground areas. No questions? You guys are easy, so. There's not much to talk about here. We're still going to be working through the elevations with the pre-engineered company. That's kind of a hinge point for us at the moment. So we're going to try and buy as much brick as we can. We're planning for a standing seam metal roof. The building will meet all energy code minimum requirements. We'll try and do better where we can afford it. And then I think aside from that, trying to bring in as much daylight as possible, try to be a little playful with different materials and daylight for that matter, just because we know we've got some young kids there and try to make things energetic for them. Okay, so that's kind of it for the drawings for now. Certainly, my plan is to show you some additional detail once we've got the design fully locked down with the other company.
As Cody had mentioned, as we worked through this process, we came to a realization several months ago that the square footage and the program we're trying to fit into this building, we were going to be very challenged with the working budget that we had that was provided by the grant. And so we talked through several strategies for trying to deliver this building at the greatest value possible. And one of those approaches was to utilize a pre-engineered building system. There's the best value for the project is the chief building for the local dealer, which is Buildings by Design. Some of you are probably very familiar with them as a local contractor. The bid for the steel structure, standing seam metal roof, and installation associated with that roof is $145,247. And again, this is only to essentially procure the building itself and get the steel, sheeting, and insulation on the ground here. The balance of the work to actually build that structure, put that roof on, and then the balance of the project will be bid once the construction documents are completed on or around January, February. I guess in a comparative nature, or some validation that this process did indeed have some value in a project that we were involved with here in the last year. It was a conventional steel structure and a flat roof with EPDM membrane roof. That same type of structure, similar size, ran around $220,000. Without getting into the nature of inflation and all that minutia, I guess, I believe that we did in fact find some value in going with this approach.
Yep. Lastly, just wanted to mention a few next steps. So we actually have a meeting with Ron and Karen and Mike this coming Wednesday. It's just kind of our next round of user meetings. We'll kind of recap where we left off with the DD documents. There's also a list that we've been kind of working on over the last week of requests, and so we'll just kind of vet those as a team. As I had mentioned before, we have been already in communication with the city. We're just trying to lock down an actual date when they're available. And then, again, coordination with the pre-engineered metal company, that'll start and be going full steam ahead, honestly, as soon as we get them on board. And then, although I do see from the agenda that the next board meeting is December 4th, that might be a little early, and maybe we can do another update after the holidays then, if there isn't another one that fits in the middle of December. And I think we can make that one maybe even a little more exciting. We can show you a real model and have some fun with that.
Any questions?
How many bids were submitted?
We received 3.
Were they all local?
Two were local. Yep.
Is that on a slab foundation, concrete slab?
Yes.
Yes.
I have one question, and it just shows my ignorance when it comes to construction. But you said the $145,000 or whatever was to get the steel here and get it on the ground, and then you're gonna bid out actually putting it up. So theoretically, a different company could install it? Does that?
Theoretically, yes.
Is that a good idea?
But it does lend itself to the provider, Buildings by Design, also being the erector. They may have an interest in being the general contractor for the whole project. They may just have an interest in being a subcontractor to the general contractor. They certainly would have the opportunity to bid that, and there's some inherent efficiencies in having them do that and having them perform. Is that an issue?
Yeah, it just seemed like a good idea. If you're gonna buy it from them, they should be the ones to build it, but I guess that may not be the way the process works.
Sure, and this gets into some of the detail as to why we went with this approach, and some of it has to do with the permitting process and the timing in which we need to have this building here on the ground and ready to be so. I'm gonna try to do this briefly. The engineer drawings that are associated with this metal building have to be working right now, so that they can be a part of the permit submittal that goes with the architect's drawings to the state. If we had done this more conventionally and waited and did that afterwards, there
timely with submitting to the state and that their review is quick, right? They're gonna get really busy again. They're kind of slow right now, but everybody submits school projects in the spring.
Thank you. Thank you. We're excited about this, getting this building up and ready for students next year.
For the board's, this information, one of the challenges that Jeff and Cody, as well as the district management, have faced is that this is, how do I word this, maybe a tier 2 construction project. This isn't like the new middle school where you've got significantly large construction companies who are wanting to propose on that, who are normally in the routine process of providing performance bonds for this. Since we're a unilocal government school district, we have to have performance bond on this project, and $2.6 million, $3 million is a ton of money, but not relative to major construction companies. So we're wanting to have local activity in our project, but they also have to be able to be a company that meets the requirements to produce a performance bond for this project. So unfortunately, that weeded out a lot of our potential customers who we would hope would possibly bid just because they couldn't meet the performance bond. So that's been one of the challenges Jeff has faced in the RFP and the budgeting process, is getting contractors that will be able to actually submit the bond as a component of our requirements, and that's somewhat narrowed our scope of possible contractors. So that's kind of been a unique challenge for this project compared to what we face in the middle school.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you.
All right. We now have,
So we actually felt good about the three people, the three companies that did submit a proposal, because we were concerned if we would get more than one, so we did feel good about that.
I was just gonna say we had,
Taking names.
you're getting a C minus.
Started. Pictures. Still some cookies left.
I was gonna say, we now have an opportunity for audience, if any of you would like to have an audience with the board before you leave? No? Last one? Wow. Wow, do you wanna tell us who you are? No, you're fine. We're glad you decided to stay, thank you. We're gonna send a note to say thank you. Hey, thank you.
Yep.
There you go. That's right. Good job. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else? Do you have opportunity for audience here? We have some guests in the crowd. Thank you for being here. What's that? Yeah. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to reports, board reports. We will turn it over to Miss Hallie Shaver. Your sister didn't even stick around to see what you had to say. How rude is that? So, why don't you tell us what's going on in your world over there?
So all fall sports have ended. They all ended around the same time, which is weird. And now it's winter sports. And
Which
this-
sports are winter sports?
Basketball, wrestling, there's winter track. Yeah, inside. Like on Sundays or something. But this weekend is the fall musical, which is pretty excited. I'm excited to see it.
Sounds good. And are you, volleyball's over, now you started another sport?
Yep.
Now you're on to basketball?
Yes.
Great. All the seniors have a lot of things going on right now,
Yeah.
college applications and things like that?
Scholarships, all the above.
All of the above, all good, well, keep up the good work. So, moving on to board reports, does any board members have any reports to share? No? Okay. Next, Mr. Eccles.
The most most of the conversation, a lot will be around construction. That's where our lives have been tied up again, just where I'm excited to go again.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So you already heard one proposal for our Head Start project, and in a few minutes you'll hear our other project regarding our old middle school. So I won't take time to discuss that now. I do want to just update the board. I did send the board out. Appreciate Brian and his staff and everyone that works getting the October count. It's extremely difficult. You think, well, all you have to do is count heads times this, and it's much more involved process, and it has to be thorough, and it has to be correct, and it has to be clean. And I appreciate Brian and his staff and Meg putting forth all the time, work, and effort doing that. But Brian did report the numbers I passed on to the board today, but just to clarify, we have a total head count of 3,416 students this year. Now, of course, there's only so many that can be counted FTE, full-time students, which Mike gets all the funding, and that's 3,096. That's up approximately 87.5 students from last year. So we were actually hoping at one time for even a greater number, but even that, if you take that times about 8,000, that's going to be a significant amount of money coming to our district. And what I'm really excited about is the trend the last couple of years, and especially this year, that I remember when I first came and Mike had been showing we were kind of ticking down as a district in numbers, and I'm excited to see the last couple of years where we've changed that trend and we're going up in numbers and had really what constituted a dramatic jump this year. So we're excited about that, and I think Mike's going to talk about a little more detail about the money and money issues, what that means to our district here in a few minutes, but that's all I really have.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll hand it to the person at your right, Michael Boyer.
Hello. So we have been busy in HR hiring a few folks. I think when all is said and done, we're making some good progress. You have, of course, the report in front of you that talks about the history and where we're at. All the positions that we're still trying to fill are listed throughout there. A couple certified positions, a couple classified positions. There are some that have been harder to fill, of course. Special ed is one of those areas, and we're hopeful. Since we last met, we did attend, Matthew McLean and myself did attend an internship job fair in Denver. We're actually selling our health counselor position as a paid opportunity for one of those interns. We feel like we have a couple really good candidates if that pans out. And you know, at the end of the day, I know our principals are trying to nail down some candidates for some 5th grade positions, other positions such as special ed that we've been trying to fill through another job fair that we did at UNC. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to fill those last few slots.
Okay, great, well, thank you very much. Big job. Any questions for Michael? All right, we'll go to the other side. Mike, can you tell us about our finances?
Well, the superintendent's always used to me kind of going out of order, but I've got a little bit of stuff to go over. Would we want to jump down to our discussion item B and get our guests moving on down the road, or would you like to keep that as it?
I'm all for that, but
Unless the board has any concerns about doing that, I think that'd be terrific.
After I drone on, they may leave, and that would be a bad thing. So.
Yeah.
I'm sure that even after the presentation, they'll want to stick around and listen to your presentation. So we have guests with us from Calvary University. Why don't you come on up, Chris, and guests, and introduce everyone. As the board's aware, we've been having conversations and visits and with representatives from Calvary University regarding the acquisition of our current the old Fort Morgan Middle School, and kept the board abreast on all the conversations. We met with them again today, along with the city. Had some very good conversations moving forward with this partnership, and I'll let Chris make the introductions. And
thank you very much. A few things we'd like to share with you. First of all, we're very grateful to be with you again. I'm thankful for all of the efforts so far in the discussions, and appreciating getting to know you all and getting to know the community. I brought some wonderful people with me this evening, and I'll tell you who they are in just a moment. First, in this past initiatives for Calvary University. And Amy Pampa, his wife, is with us, and they are hoping to relocate to Fort Morgan area, and we're hoping for that. We have a press release we wanted to hand you that reflects the discussions that we've been having. We are very excited about the possibility of coming into the Fort Morgan area, being part of your community. And we're excited about the community engagement aspect. We're excited about helping with education. We're excited about partnering with the different entities here, different educators. Looking forward to meeting with leaders in the area, yourself, of course, and with the community college as well. We're very excited about that. So we're formally announcing, this press release that you have formally announces that we're engaged in discussions with you in consideration of the possibility of having the middle school, former middle school as Calvary University's campus expansion in Colorado. So we're very excited about that possibility. And we got some really excellent clarification today. There were some real hurdles that we had to deal with in respect to city codes and fire suppression and parking, all these kinds of things that, all of the important details that you have to consider. And we're really excited that as we work through some of that process, we have clarity, and we're encouraged by all of that, and I think we're very excited about being able to move forward. We have, from our end, our questions are answered. Our executive team and our board leadership are all in favor of moving forward, launching a campus here in Fort Morgan. So we're here to say thank you for the consideration thus far, and we're excited about the potential and look forward to see what may be in store. And Jeff had an opportunity to visit the building for the first time today, and just share some quick thoughts about this location of the building, and I know it's bigger than maybe you anticipated.
I'd seen some pictures of it, so somewhat prepared. A few will walk through. It was incredible, and what struck me most was the heritage in that facility, representing the community, representing the heart and soul of this community and education. So the potential and then the possibility of coming in and continuing to carry that forward, preparing people for life and service, it was almost overwhelming. But it was appreciating Mike's patience with us, walking through and answering questions and things. So it was our opportunity, my opportunity the first time, but our opportunity again to walk through that and discuss the possibility and the potential for opportunities there.
We also wanted to be available to answer any questions that you may have.
This is the quietest I've seen this group.
So what are, like, the next steps then? To continue
Well,
this
I
process on?
had a pen here, so give me something to sign.
We during our conversations, and I will update the board as soon as possible, but our plan is to put together a contract with, under the direction of Ed Zorn, approved by the board, that we will be submitting to Calvary University.
I think, can we just like pinch you to make sure that's real?
We're not leaving out of town till we sign the contract.
The city's been doing a good enough job of that. for the
Oh,
past
yeah,
few
okay,
years.
I'm sure,
You
yeah.
know, it's a great process, and it's been very good, because really, I think we've been dealing with this and thinking through this for 6 or 7 weeks, maybe longer. And for us, we've looked at expansion, put it in our strategic plan. We've looked at a number of opportunities around the country, some good opportunities. This is one that is just remarkable for us, because this area, within a 100-mile radius of Denver, is our second largest constituency of alumni, donors, friends, and family in the United States, second to Kansas City, where our main campus is. And the fact that we have an opportunity potentially to come into this community, be part of what you're doing, is just really exciting. So it allows us to fulfill our mission, but in a very active way, engaging with community. I think sometimes that piece is missing, so we're excited about it.
was an exciting prospect for us as well, because when we started the whole process of building a new middle school years ago now, this has been going on since we first initiated that, one of the things that we told the community was we would do everything we could to try to maintain that building. That was one of the things that they spoke loud and clear that they wanted to do. So we're excited about the possibility of being able to pull that off and have that building that so many people are nostalgic about, and it's been sitting in the middle of our town all these years to still stand.
To have a good neighbor.
To have a good neighbor as well.
We look forward to that. I might also want to add, because of the kind of confidential nature of these discussions, as they always are, we've been very cautious about how we communicated. And one thing we would have liked to have done, but have not yet done, is to meet with community college leadership, to sit down, spend time with them, and start beginning those discussions of how we can complement what they're doing. We haven't had those discussions yet, so I just want to be on record as stating that that is a very important thing to us. And our delay in doing that has really been only out of respect for the process and for you all. So we look forward to doing that, and I think what you'll see is, just as we've had articulation agreements and partnerships with a lot of different entities really around the world, I think we'll see some neat things coming in partnership with the two schools. I don't want to speak for them, we haven't discussed, but I think that's what you're going to see. So we're looking forward to it. So thank you for the consideration and for allowing us to speak with you all this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate your
much.
time for being here. So, we just lost Jenny for a little bit. That's okay.
She's actually gotta go anyway.
Oh, she did? Okay. Well,
Wizard of
we'll
Oz pictures.
What?
She has to go to high school for Wizard of Oz pictures.
Oh, gosh, okay.
Before you get going, can we take a short break?
We sure can.
Cool.
We sure can. Take a 5-minute recess. Come back at.
Seconded first?
We have to-
Oh, my goodness, look at all those pictures.
Droning was the term I used.
Yeah, that's true. Everything just fell into place. That's what I'm saying. Can't you? It's gonna work. If it works, that's gonna be just, especially, you know, in the state. How long of a break are we taking?
Well, that'd be 45 minutes.
Oh. Oh.
A little bit.
Kid again.
Really disappointing.
And I gotta stop that.
mine
You
too.
see the process, like us
I know.
doing the agenda.
I'll be,
Oh, do you wanna take those discussions?
I'll bring them.
All right, who are we missing?
No, I said, do you wanna take the handouts with you? No, I'm fine, I'll be there with bells on at 7.
You seem one of the front row. Good job.
We're proud of you.
We are.
I'm emailing Mr. Schultz tomorrow.
He's probably home watching.
What year are you? Junior? Great, great. Well, we're really glad to have you here. Did you get a cookie? They might be gone now, I don't know. Sorry about that. But there's some, rice. The consolation. Who are we missing?
Derek?
Todd. Derek, are you ready? Is Todd, there he is, all right. All right, we have everybody back. I think we're gonna, continue with our meeting, but before we let Mike Lee take it away, we're just gonna circle back to Michael Boyer for a moment. There's something we didn't get a chance to hear about.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. In the next week, so starting a week from Wednesday, we're going to have several meetings with employees talking about a change in our administration of our health plan. So you've all heard the name Apostrophe. They've been working as our concierge provider. So they've been overseeing the Teladoc program, the 24/7, call a doctor program, our no-cost surgery benefit. And they've partnered with employees to help them find some, low-cost providers, answer questions. Best did a RFP process wherein they asked the current administrator, Colorado Choice, and a few others bid as well, to come in and present. And at the end of the day, we decided to go with Apostrophe in this northeast region and in the San Luis Valley region to oversee the health plan. So starting January 1, Apostrophe will become the new health plan administrator for the plan, and they'll cover our enrollment, customer service functions, and then most importantly, they'll be processing the claims, similar to what Colorado Choice is doing, with a couple differences. So their approach, so the plan design itself will remain the same. There's nothing changing about that, but their approach is to really try to save the trust some money. So what they're going to do is immediately pay the share of the medical bill that goes to the provider, and also the employee's share of the medical bill. I know that sounds strange, but that's what they're going to do. And then they will bill directly with one bill to the employee. And the point is, they're hoping to get better rates from providers by cutting to the chase and getting that bill paid quickly. So it will kind of be the end of confusing medical bills is what we hope at the end of the day. So they're going to calculate that part of the bill that is owed, and then pay it on behalf of the employee, and then bill them directly. And the employee can engage in payment plans with Apostrophe if they can't afford to pay it all at once. They can set up their account such that they can use their HSA card automatically for any statements coming their way, other benefit cards like an HRA, etc. So that'll be pretty exciting. A huge difference in their approach is we're getting rid of the tiers. So we currently have an out-of-network tier and then a tier 1, tier 2. We're going to get rid of all the providers. Employees can go see any provider they would like to see. What Apostrophe will try to do is to negotiate with those providers a percent of Medicare for the services that the providers are going to do on behalf of the employee. So that will be a big help to help cut down the costs of our plan. There's a few other couple perks that they're going to provide us, but those are the big important things I wanted to discuss and let the board know in advance. And again, we're going to start meeting first with Green Acres next Wednesday afternoon, after we get the welcome packets and employee ID cards delivered about 1:30 that afternoon. And then we're going to start for the next couple weeks and meet with all the employees, both certified and classified, to explain the changes and hopefully answer any questions that the employees might have. So.
Have some of those negotiations with the local providers already been taking place?
Yeah, they sure have, yeah. Apostrophe's already reached out to our biggest provider here locally, CPMC. They've worked with the banner providers as well. And I mean, the end of the day, they hope that we as the employee will reach out to them first, give them a heads up as to what's going on so that they can partner with the employee to determine, you know, where is the best provider, what makes the most sense from a quality and cost perspective, and hopefully that will save the plan some big bucks.
Thank you, thanks for that update.
Is there anything I missed, Mike, that I should have discussed? Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, Mike, you got 10 minutes to wrap it up.
Ooh. We've got a variety of documents that you have in your packet, and I guess what I'd like to do is go to the third bullet on your packet. If you can open that document. I actually want to spend my time kind of going through that, just a general financial statement update. Is that working? Can you read it? I mean, is it probably kind of...
This is the third one, which one are you talking about?
This is the July through October.
Okay, I got you.
Okay. Just wanted to kind of give you a current update on our most recent close of financials as of October. And just to give you just a more current kind of review of our financials. This is for the general fund, which of course is our main operational fund. This is the same format you see every month, but I've expanded the section on the left to include July, August, September, October, and then the fifth column is the year-to-date through October, and then there's October of 16. Then there's a little hyphen in that header line, and then you see the right-hand section, which is the budgeted amounts for the current month, and then the year-to-date. Year-to-date, of course, being just 4 months, and then our total adopted budget that we have for 17-18, monthly percentage, and then our 33.33, which would be 4 months to get us up through October. Just a couple highlights, I guess. If you look at the fifth column from the left, which is the year-to-date 10/31/17, about 6 lines down, it's under total revenues. Our total revenues through the first 4 months is $7,604,000. Anybody with me on that number? If you look right next door, you see our revenue through October last year was $6,768,000. So we're up about $836,000 of total revenue from what we were a year ago through the first 4 months. And nothing really out of the ordinary with that. We've seen a couple new state grants come in that have been provide us a little additional funding, but all in all, we're tracking with what our property tax and state equalization should be for this period of time. If you go to the next section, that's our expenditures. You can see our 5 broad categories: salaries, benefits, purchase service, supplies, materials, capital outlay, and other. If you look down about 6 lines, you see total expenditures, once again in that same fifth column from the left. Expenditures year-to-date through October, $7,657,000. Anybody kind of eyeballing that number? You can look to the column to the right, you can see where we were a year ago, that was $7,257,000. So an increase of this year 4 months versus last year 4 months of about $400,513. So the net through the 4 months is the very next line. We're deficit through October of $52,775. Last year this time we were deficit of $488,437. So that's a kind of a double negative. It's a better because it's a smaller loss. So we went from a 480 down to 52. So we've ticked up about 435,000 in total resources for the first 4 months. $800,000 more in revenue, but we spent $400,000 more on expenditures, so we're up about $400,000 from where we were a year ago. And if you look at the right-hand column, once again, the challenges that I've experienced over the years, and I'll be sharing that blame and responsibility with Mr. Boyer, our new HR guru of projecting into the future with his crystal ball, is looking at salary projections where we would be. If you look at that far right-hand column under the salary and benefits numbers, we should be, in a perfect world, 33.33 if our salaries, my salary budget numbers are right on track. So we're, for the first 4 months, we're about 31%. We're just a hair below that in total benefits. And you can see it's not a material number from 33 versus 31, but it is enough when you're talking about 15 million, another 6 million of benefits. A couple percentage points definitely makes a difference. And that's, if you recall last year, that's what took us from a more significant budget deficit to a smaller deficit, was because we just beat our expectations for our full employment budgeted salaries, and we're seeing that same trend. Nothing unusual about that, but as you see Michael's review of the hires report, there's constantly turnover, and it's never the person leaves on Friday and a new person is in their chair on Monday. It just doesn't work that way. We always have a lag, and we don't budget a lag necessarily when we budget for full employment, that everyone's going to be here, but in reality it just doesn't work that way. That's that incremental difference of a little over a percentage point of savings that we're going to realize. So we're kind of on that same path, so that's a positive number. The other revenues and expenses are just kind of on track. A couple odd things that I'm seeing is that we had more HRA contribution, or excuse me, more HRA enrollments this year, partly because of the taking advantage of the zero deductible surgery benefits that Michael talked about. So we had less HSA payments. HSA payments are 100% out of our pocket. Day one, when we make that contribution, we do that in September. The HRA is a promise from RE3 to the employees, and we raised that up from $750 to $1,000. And so we actually paid out less cash, but made a bigger promise. And we've had some pretty good utilization of the HRAs, but we're still running below where we were a year ago, which was kind of the projection numbers that I was seeing, that the promise to pay $1,000 for the HRA is not the same thing as writing a $1,000 check and having it go to someone's HSA, although we're continuing only to fund $750 in the HSA, because that is money right out of our total pocket. So that's just an interesting development that we'll be tracking as we go. As soon as you think you can count on the predictable behavior of employees, they'll do something different, but we're going to be tracking that number and seeing, because that's why we increased from $750 to $1,000, because we can make that promise to the employees and not actually pay the full $1,000, because not everybody is going to be sick to the tune of a $1,000 swipe on their HRA card, which we're hoping it's zero, because that means our employees are healthy and moving ahead. And that's also one of our objectives that we're trying to work with Apostrophe on, is linking our employees with their primary care physicians, especially here locally, to reduce people's travel time, so that our employees are linking with the primary care physicians to mitigate our 5 most severe chronic conditions. So we're dealing with those chronic conditions that are not showing up in ER and then triggering some of our claim fluctuation reserve issues we had this past year. So far, our loss ratios have been pretty good for 2017-18. So far, we're on the right track, and we're hoping to improve on that. Good for the employees, good for RE3, and good for RE3 taxpayers. So we're hoping that continues. So our budget is on track. Don't see anything here unusual. $52,000 deficit sounds bad, but we haven't had any property tax since June, other than some delinquents that stroll in. So we're getting closer to see, in February, we'll see a big tick up in revenue. You can see our property tax is only 9%, you know, and because we don't get that on a regular monthly basis. Equalization is a different story, and that you can see is right at 33%, so we get that every single month. So that's what keeps our cash flow healthy from the operations of the district. So nothing out of the ordinary or unusual there. Any questions about that, or? The one thing we're still trying to do is close out our capital construction grant for the new middle school. That is just been a chronic, slow process. We're trying to get those final bills expended, and we did pay off our general contractor their last $50,000 retainings. That requisition went into the state to reimburse them. So we're hoping to wrap things up with Hazelton, our general contractor. And then Jason Frasco, our building principal, is working on his priority list for the remaining projects that he wants to conclude out of our contingency funds that are also held by CDE, which is our taxpayers' bond money. We never want to spend money for the sake of spending money, but the provisions of the bond agreement is that you generate the proceeds from the bonds, you have to spend those on the capital project. So we're going to live up to the bond indenture agreement and spend those remaining dollars down on some final project he has to, just things that were taken out in the original budget because of budgetary constraints. We'll be able to finish it up. So we're hoping to bring that one to a close before we dive into the new construction on Head Start building that's going on at Sherman. Much different dollar magnitude, but still we want to get one completed before we dive into another. Any questions about that? Oh, yes. HRA is called a health reimbursement arrangement, and it's a benefit that the district provides to employees. We give them a debit card, and we have $1,000 deposit onto that card, so when they go to the doctor, to the hospital, to the pharmacy, they can swipe that card and it covers their medical expense, and then the district actually pays for that, so the employee doesn't have to pay for that. It helps them cover their family's medical costs, you know, small or big, up to $1,000 per year. Good question. The next thing I'd like to discuss with the board is the 2018-19 governor's budget proposal. And I sent this to you before, just kind of a quick highlight. Is yours in color? Okay. The orange is where we are right now. And if you look at column C, and I've got the 4 Morgan school districts right there, just for more information purpose than anything else. The totals are not the total of the 4. The totals are statewide, so that says Mike can't add, but there's a whole bunch of lines in here that have been hidden because this is 178 school districts. So that number under column C for Fort Morgan, there's that 3,044.2. That's a funded pupil count that I've referenced in a couple emails that I've sent you regarding our pupil count as we go, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But 2017 is where we are right now, operating under our budget that you approved in June for 17-18. This is what we're living off of right now. The next page is the blue. And just point of interest, under column L, you see the same pupil counts. And this is what the state has projected our 18-19 pupil count of 3,060.1. So they're showing us a little bit of tick up in pupil count. I don't know what their crystal ball is, but they're showing us an increase, and maybe they're tracking our recent trends. But you can see our total program funding in column M should be $27,307,000. That's a combination of our SO tax, our equalization, and property tax. And you can see the negative factor projected for 18-19 $2,677,503. Prior to the recession, that's what we have given up in funding that under the old days we would have received that. Once again, imagine our RE3 budget if we added another $2.6 million to the revenue stream, what other kinds of project and activities we could be doing, pretty significant number. So our proposed, as he has drafted it, I mean, this is gonna probably be a long way from where we end up. It's $24,629,000 after the negative factor. And then if you go to the third page, and under column X, you see our total program funding. And once again, this is not authoritative, this is just the governor's proposal, but compared to 17-18 compared to 18-19, that would be an increase for RE3 of 1.1 million. And that is with the assumption that we're gonna jump from 3,044 kids up to the 3,060 kids. And I had sent you an email, well, a couple different emails over the past month and a half or so on pupil counts. And it's a process to nail down pupil counts. You wouldn't think it'd be that hard. It's the process of counting kids in seats, but not all the kids in seats are in the seat all day long. We have different kinds of student relationships with RE3, starting with the preschool kindergartners. They have, for some reason, if you go to kindergarten all day long, we're only going to give you 58 cents on the dollar. When you move up a grade and go to first grade, we're going to give you $1 for that same. We'll fund you $1 for that, or equivalency of $1, excuse me. So why that is, who knows, but that's just what it is. So those kids don't count as a full FTE. Then we move into mainly the upper grades, and then you have our iConnect kids, our advanced kids, our ABLE kids, and kids on a variety of different schedules, and they're not a full one. And so our funded pupil count is Ron had kind of alluded before, is 3,096. But we actually count 3,416, so we're almost 300 kids less in what the state pays us than what we have kids in seats. And the process that our IT department has to go is converting those 3,400 kids in a seat as to how many hours a day they're actually in the seat that equivalents to an FTE that the state's actually going to write us a check for. That's the task, and it takes a while to go through that. I did just kind of a couple quick analysis of our total count. And I apologize, I should have given this to you in writing, but you love to hear me talk, so just bear with me on this droning of oratory discussion here. Our 1 through 5 kids in all of our elementaries, we were about 1,250 kids last year. This year, and we were about 1,100. So we're up about 75 kids in grades 1 through 5 this year versus a year ago. That's the majority of our increase. The 6, 7, and 8, we're at 676, and we were at 650 last year, so about 27 more. Not near as significant. It's fewer grades, obviously. And then the high school, which is a combination of the Fort Morgan High School and Lincoln School and the advanced, the ABLES, the iConnects, we're down about 8.5 kids, so that was about a push. But 75 in the elementary, and then there are 27 in the middle school, and that's a total increase of about 92 kids this year compared to a year ago.
I guess the elementary school is where we mostly want to see them.
Well, that gives us a funding stream for years to come, as opposed to them hopping into high school, then they leave us, and then our lower grades are low. So assuming these folks stick around, for whatever reason brought them here in the first place, that is going to provide a more stable funding base. So we're up 92 from a year ago, and the state has ticked us up another 20 for next year. Is that realistic, or would be more of a level off for 18-19 versus 17-18? Don't know, we'll see how that goes, but that's the component of that. And I'd sent you the worksheets on I had state reprice that based on our projection of the kids. All the counts will go into the hopper statewide, and then the assessor does all of your valuations of your property taxes next month. And the state takes your property tax valuations and compares that statewide. They take the pupil count statewide, reshuffle the pot, and figure out what that allocation is, and then we get that late January, then we get together the last day of January and do our final budget based on that reshuffled allocation of all kid count and all assessed valuations that's done in December. So then we're gonna have a much better idea as to what our funded pupil count will be going forward for the last 6 months of the year. And then try and compare that to our expenditures. Once again, trying to budget full employment, and then hopefully, well, we really probably won't have anything more than that, but we've seen some position adds. I mean, with 92 additional kids, we've added some positions, but even with adding positions, that has not translated to an increased cost over our salary budget, so that's good news as well. Of course, nothing's in here from the para perspective of potentially the increased para contribution from us. That's a district obligation, that's not a state obligation, so if the legislature rolls us more money, we theoretically, if that's what the legislation does, if any, now you see the governor's proposal is not to have employers pay additional para costs, that be absorbed by the employees with some modifications. That's gonna be really interesting to see how that goes, but you'll see our liability on our books that we're finalizing in our audit process. Auditors were here last week, and they'll be back for final work, but you're gonna see probably, my guess is almost a doubling of our para liability. I wouldn't be surprised if our para liability probably went over 100 million, which is a staggering number. So we'll just kind of keep you apprised of how that goes and how that process goes. So that's just kind of an update of financials and on track, and pupil count solid, and the governor's proposing to roll out some additional money, which is for K-12 is a good thing.
That sounds promising.
Some people may not agree, but for relative to cash flow, that'll provide us some additional resources if the legislature goes along with his thinking.
Thank you very much.
Questions or? Oh, yes. I'm sorry. iConnect is, I'll let you respond. You're way more.
iConnect is one of our alternative high school pathways for kiddos who may not fit in the traditional high school. And it's actually right down the street over here in the BOCES building.
Thank you. Another good question. Dr. Fassel.
Any questions? Can I enlighten you before you jump onto this board? She's already got it figured out, so. Yes, and then the last thing, thank you, Karen. The last thing I did want to bring up to the board is Karen and I, not me, I didn't have anything to do with this. She did all the work, but I had her do some research, and we've discussed this before, but we didn't do it as an action item. But there's an accounting process that we identify through our procedures. It's called the period of availability. And that is, we identify how long into the future before we collect our final grant receipts that are attributable to the prior year's expenditures as of June. And for example, even though our fiscal year end is June 30th, we have our teachers, they work 9 months, but we turn that 9/9 into a pay contract of 12/12, so they get a paycheck every month. And then we also incur bills for goods and services by the end of June, but we don't pay those until we get final invoices and bills from vendors. And that can run, especially on construction projects, that can run clear, like our capital construction for the new middle school can run out in a minimum of 90 days, sometimes even longer, by the time you get the final bill for the work that was actually done prior to June 30th. We've been using 120 days as our period of availability, and that tells me that I can recognize revenue that comes in from grant receipts up to the end of October, and I can recognize that as revenue that was earned because we spent the money by June, we just didn't get the check. And part of that is even, maybe they're busy too, but some of that is payments from the state that comes to us, especially on the grant receipts. It takes them a while to get that stuff processed and get us paid. And I'm proposing, not really necessarily for a board action form, but more for my own internal accounting. I want to extend that period of 150 days, which is out to November. We're still waiting for special ed reimbursement for our salaries and benefits that we incurred by June 30th that we just haven't paid for, or we paid for through our end of August payroll. But we're still waiting for them to pay us. So I think it would really be a kind of a weird anomaly that if I recognize the expenditures as June and they owed us that money, we didn't get it by the end of October, so then I have to defer that. So it looks like we went deficit in the hole because I had to cut off my revenue of 120 days. So I want to extend that out another 30 days to day 150. And that way my revenues, in a perfect world for special ed and in Rena's world, if I spend $1, I get $1. Head Start's a little different because in Head Start we spend $1, we got to match 20 cents of that dollar, but in Rena's world, in our special ed world, we spend $1, we get $1. So I spend $1 by June, but I don't get that dollar until after October 30th. I'm going to show no revenue for that because it's beyond my period of availability, and it'll show a deficit, and it just looks weird. She's nodding affirmatively. Yeah, good explanation, Mike. So internally, I'm going to extend our period of availability up to 150 days. Just want you to be aware of that. And Karen is making dubious notes of this discussion, so when I asked her before, can we cut that back? Didn't we talk about that a few years ago? She said, oh yeah, I remember now. So, any questions about that? Kind of some accounting mumbo jumbo, but I think it actually provides a reasonable matching concept. If we were in private business, as you would say, you're hoping your vet customers don't wait 150 days to pay their bill.
That would be bad.
But unfortunately, in the government arena, the bureaucracy to process bills and get them paid is not getting better, unfortunately.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So. Oh yes. No, you're not bothered at all. Revenue is like your paycheck. It's an accounting term to describe the money you receive versus a expenditure, which is what we call for a check. So your paycheck is your money in, and your check is your money out. Revenue is your paycheck in, and expenditure is your checks that you write going out the door. So it's just it's an accounting term.
He doesn't write checks, he uses a debit card.
There you go. Yeah, old school. It shows you where I am.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay.
I didn't have anything that I was, but I want to make sure, I just got an update from the Take Note Initiative. And so Governor Hickenlooper is going to make an actual announcement on December 7th. And he may be in Fort Morgan to do so. We've been trying to set the detour date, this 2-day music event. We've set it for December 6th and 7th. They have a DJ coming, and we're with turntables that they're going to, several of them are going to be donated to the school district. And we're really linking up with Lincoln as one of the prime spots because they have no actual music program. And so they'll be doing some on-site workshops. And I know that our next board meeting is not till the 4th, so I'll make sure I update you. And we're going to be having a community, some sort of community concert on the night of the 7th. So I'm coordinated that with Cynthia Christensen. We've been working with Bryce Merrill from the Bohemian Foundation and Kyle Hauser, who is with the Take Note group. So that's just a quick update.
Thank you very much. Exciting. Okay, we have worked our way down to our discussion items. You have before you, discussion item A, policies for fifth reading. These were some that we had, I think, tabled last time, or somehow we weren't ready last time.
And there hasn't been anything new on these.
Okay.
So we will finish these out at the
Okay.
next board meeting.
Okay, and these are part of the School Safety Act, the Claire Davis Act.
The two of them are the first two, and then the last one, but FMEA wanted to submit a few changes. So I gave them a deadline today, hard and fast one.
Okay, so you have those policies fifth reading.
Yeah, so they'll be approved, ready for approval at the next one.
And we also have next, we already met with Calvary University, so it's fun to have them here. And then moving on to our consent agenda, you have some personnel actions with the personnel action report and list of checks for the district for July and August under claims and accounts.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Gerken? Mr. Keller?
Aye.
Mrs. McLean? Mr. Schneider? Mr. Sharp? Dr. Smith? And Mrs. Weingarten?
Aye. Moving on to action items. Action item A is to consider, consideration of policies on third reading, and that is just an elimination of the JLD, the guidance and counseling policy.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Gerken?
Aye.
Mr. Keller? Mrs. McLean? Mr. Schneider? Mr. Sharp? Dr. Smith? And Mrs. Weingarten?
Aye. Action item B, consideration to approve the metal building for Head Start. We did get to hear about that, and Mike Bailey is still here. We have any further questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
Any questions or further discussion about that project? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Gerken?
Aye.
Mr. Keller?
Aye.
Mrs. McLean? Mr. Schneider?
Aye.
Mr. Sharp? Dr. Smith? Mrs. Weingarten?
Aye. Action item C is a consideration to approve the agreement with the city.
I was hoping to have the final document, lease document here. Unfortunately, my counterpart with the city has been out for a while. I was hoping to have that done today, so hopefully I'll have it tomorrow, the final lease agreement for Ms. Weingarten to sign for the board.
So you have this draft agreement here for the city. And then a memo with some recommended changes to that agreement.
So would we move to approve the agreement with the recommended changes? Is that how we would do it, or do we have to wait till we have the final?
I think I wrote the action items so that it actually gives the board the approval for Mrs. Weingarten to sign the final when it comes. So you would be approving that she actually is going to sign for you as a board.
We have it as a draft, so.
Yeah, and that you have in front of you is the draft, and then she would sign the final. So,
A motion to approve? Second.
Any further discussion about that?
Barring any material changes in the final agreement, we would make full disclosure to you, Connie, if there was any material changes to that. We don't think there's gonna be, but we just didn't get, as Ron mentioned, we just didn't get that back tonight. That'd have been great, but
I saw him at lunchtime today too, didn't know him. Okay, then may we have roll call, please?
Mr. Gerken?
Aye.
Mr. Keller?
Aye.
Mrs. McLean? Mr. Schneider?
Aye.
Mr. Sharp? Dr. Smith? And Mrs. Weingarten?
Aye. Motion carries. Action item D, consideration to approve upgrades at Legion Baseball Field. And something we've been talking about for a
I'll make a
while.
motion to approve?
second.
We do have Mr. Bailey here. I did get a chance to drive by there today.
Thank you for
So-
taking the bleachers down.
So,
If we don't approve, you'll have to put them back up.
Clarity, should I be honored to be here late with you guys tonight, or did I really?
Did you do something wrong?
Miss Dimple, and she put me at the bottom.
You got a free dinner out of it, so just be happy you're here. I did ask Mike to come to answer any questions the board had. I mean, it's a high number, but I was hoping to, we've had these conversations in the past. I knew it was gonna be a costly matter taking over the 30-year lease, but of course, in a year, we hope to have the full ownership of the property. But there's some costly things that we were gonna have to address for safety and liability and ADA issues, and Mike's been working diligently with his staff and getting these things moving because it was a real time crunch that we were up against, but.
can you talk a little bit about where the numbers were, how they were generated, how we got here?
Well,
And how we, yeah, come on up.
so, I guess, the cement and stuff was just put together on a square footage basis. We did some consulting with like some welding companies for the shelter. The bleacher company, we had some ideas, Kyle had been done some research on that prior for some portable stands to put it like the dual street fill. So it was put together very fast. I was talking to Derek, the number is high. I don't think we're even gonna be close to that, but it was a number that we just wanted to put together. It was safe to where we could move on because of the time crunch with the weather. Our plan is to have cement poured next week, be done, and we'll start building the structures. We have talked to the bleacher company. They think that they can have that done in January. If we have all the cement poured. But there's a lot of hurdles we haven't been through yet with the drainage. We've surveyed it to try and make sure that everything's gonna go away from the home plate, because that's always been an issue. We redesigned the front fence area to where how they always tear that up on the bottom. I don't know if it's climbing or hitting it or whatever, but we've kind of created a curve there to with the new fence for the backstop. It's gonna look really nice, and we hope that that ain't gonna happen again, so.
So we don't have some of the costs for some of this. This is a.
Ballpark
It's a ballpark, oh, good.
Yeah, good one.
It is a safe number, Connie. I don't think we'll exceed it. I think we'll be
Yeah, but usually when we,
lower, and, it was a last minute plan to put it together. But we have a very short window. We have a month window is kind of what our thoughts were, so when me and Karen put it together, we added a little to the number to make sure that we were safe just in case, but I think we're fine. And there is different phases to it too, that they like to do in the field, that, later on, I don't know when that would be, probably after the spring, baseball, we could do some field conditioning and stuff.
so I don't remember getting the breakdown on the cost. Did we receive that? Did we?
The breakdown each part of the project,
What's the cost? What is,
of each part of the
what is included in this?
Well, okay, so, are you guys familiar? We took the bleachers out.
Right.
The center section by the press box is gonna be replaced with aluminum bleachers, like we have on the stadium, but not as high.
ADA approved.
ADA approved. There has been some discussion about how we do that. So we are putting some wheelchair access so that those people can say that they're actually in the stands, and it's not just an ADA that we gave you access and you have to sit over there with these people. The two outer bleachers that we removed, those are gonna be stair-stepped in 3 levels with 8-inch increments, about 6 foot wide for our chairs, where people can sit.
upgrading the outer buildings.
The outer buildings will have new metal on them with the school colors, and the burgundy, black, and gray is our plan.
So can I go back to the bleachers again? So you're talking about 3 levels of seating. How is that more? No, well, I know, but you say you're adding additional seating. You're actually going to be losing additional seating if you only have 3 levels of concrete to sit on.
From the old bleachers, like, in relationship
Compared
to
to
the
what's
bleachers.
there now, you're not.
I don't know that we actually put a number to those areas for seating where it's lawn chairs. But we are actually gonna gain seating in the new aluminum area. I think it was, what did I tell you, 132?
Yeah.
I think it was 132 seats we'll have in front of the press box. But on the sides, I think there's gonna be enough room to where you can actually double up lawn chairs. This is really not my idea, it was a concept from Josh Langford and Kyle. I guess they've seen it in a lot of other facilities, and the city put one down by the ball field. Not quite like this, it's more of a pyramid. So I guess it's a new design that people like instead of the bleachers. So I guess we're giving them 2 options. That's fair. But I can't answer your number.
Doesn't sound like enough seating. You only have 3 levels of concrete, and I get the aluminum part in the middle.
Not everybody wants to bring their own chair either.
Well, most people don't, but.
So I guess I mean, I know we have to do something there. But, you know, I'd rather see where these dollars are going, kind of a more breakdown of what it, I know when I give my daughter $20, I don't ever get anything back on it. We're setting,
I think that's something we can share with you in time, but I mean, we're trying to get the project started. I mean, we've got people there starting to set up forms now.
But we have some specific numbers on several of those projects already. We can share that we can get that off the board tomorrow. We know what the concrete costs are, we know what the bleacher costs are, we know what the structure costs are, so we can get that specifics to the board. Is that what you mean?
yeah, I guess, I mean, this is a bigger ticket item than I probably had guessed it was going to be. And we're saying that we don't really, I mean, we have these, we're naming all the things that are included in it, but we don't really know what we're getting for our money. We don't really have a final idea what it's going to cost. It just concerns me a little bit. Like I said, so we budgeted to make sure, you saying you budgeted to fit it within that parameter, but, does that mean we're gonna spend more than we need to because we're saying we could go up to a certain, you know, I just have concerns about what those costs are really going to be, the hard costs.
Well, like Ron said, we can share them. We have
We
some
haven't seen
numbers
that.
of, you know, the certain things like this amount, we have bidded that out. So we do have numbers and stuff, but as far as a whole package yet, we don't, Connie.
Any questions?
I just want to say that I personally am a little tired of giving more money, more resources, more time to baseball, especially not knowing if we have a field for a sport that engages more students in our community, and that is soccer. So I'm having a hard time spending $175,000 on baseball. I realize we have to do it for the ADA and for taking ownership of this field.
So that's not a question to me.
No, that's not.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
No, Mike, that was not for you at all.
Okay.
We'll warn you when you need to duck.
Does anybody else have any questions or concerns, or?
Did we have a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you
Yes,
made it.
yes. David made the motion and Trish seconded the motion.
Mike, where would the funds come from on this? We didn't set anything aside for it, I know.
Just a quick, if I could take a few minutes. We have 3 components of funding source. This is repetitive, I apologize for this, but just a refresher. We have our Mill Levy Maintenance Fund, which is about $500,000. you transfer to our cap reserve fund about another $500,000. So we have $1 million that we put into our total capital and maintenance budget per year. And partly because of our focus on the new middle school construction, we haven't done, not that there haven't been some things we needed to do, but we haven't done a huge amount of capital projects. A couple highlights this year: we've already done a full $100,000 on our carpet replacement. We bought 2 new buses at about $183,000. We've done a whole boiler replacement at Columbine. That was about $165,000. Those are components that are in our capital replacement plan that we've routinely done. So far through October, we spent $750,000 out of our mill levy fund and our cap reserve fund. And our total resources that we started on July 1 in those two funds was $2,469,000. We're really solid in our mill levy and our capital reserve fund. So we've got about $1.6 million of money left in our mill levy and maintenance fund for the balance of 2017-18. That's assuming we spend everything and we would have no money left in those funds. That's not been our routine practice. We've always carried over some funds, but we renew those dollars every year. Another $500,000 of mill levy maintenance and another $500,000 that you appropriate out of the general fund. So that $1 million is an annual renewal, but if with what we spent so far, we have $1.6 million left in our mill levy and cap reserve fund. The other piece, we have an additional, almost identical amount, $1.6 million that we're still holding from the residue of our bond proceeds premium that we generated in our Fund 41. That is specifically earmarked by the bond indenture agreement that has to go for capital replacement dollars. That would, for example, fund, and this is where I've earmarked that, that's going to pay for the $500,000 that we're going to spend on the Sherman R2 rooms that we're adding to the 4 rooms that Head Start's paying to get our 6 rooms at the new wing at Sherman. That $500,000 is going to come out of there. That's going to leave us about $1.1 million in our bond mill levy, or excuse me, our bond premium dollars. So 1.1 plus another 1.6, so we're sitting at about $2.7 million of available capital resources, and that would fund things like the additions to the baseball field, things like the new soccer field, things like the restrooms, on down the list. We've already done some of our major, the bus one is always a fairly big number. The carpet's another big number. We've already got those completed for this year. Still have some other things on our capital list that we're going to do. But we've got some significant capital resources. We're in an ironic situation. We're operating cash poor because what we bring in is not enough to pay our operating bills, but our money that's restricted for capital, we're pretty rock solid on our capital dollars. Short on maintenance dollars and operational dollars, but very well reserved in our capital dollars. So there's resources to do that. It's just a matter of prioritization and looking into the future. And we've tried to do that: boiler replacements, roof replacements, restroom replacements. Not very glorious kinds of things, but critical for the facility maintenance and ongoing restoration of our buildings at RE3. Kind of make sense, sort of, kind of?
Well, I would like to see the numbers as well, and I'm going to vote for this. But part of reading this is talking about ADA issues. And we've got ADA issues big time over at the football field. Somebody's going to go into those bathrooms and can't use them, and we're going to be in trouble. That's got to be something that gets taken care of. I understand the reason for the baseball, and I agree with it, but you can't stand in there shoulder to shoulder. You can't. There's no way in the world you're going to get a wheelchair in those bathrooms now. That needs to be fixed before we get in trouble.
But the bathrooms are a problem overall over there. I would like like to have seen the numbers on this. I know you're saying that, you know, we kind of threw this together in the last month and all. It'd be nice to see what we're actually looking to do over there that's inclusive of that 175,000. Any
Well,
other
I think,
comments?
I mean, would you be comfortable with giving approval, Connie, I mean, so that we could at least get the concrete part done? I mean, we've got the weather that's kind of backing up that we're trying to get ready, and then get the numbers for the rest of it before we move on. I mean, because we are there to get started. I mean, we've jumped through a lot of hoops with the city, as Todd said. This ADA deal is not an easy issue.
It's
I
not an
mean,
easy
because
issue, I
there's a
know
lot
that.
of clarification, what meets ADA. But the city has been very workable. I mean, probably more so than dealing with the state, which is our normal agency. And it's very confusing for me because they're saying the hard surface, like in the hard, not so gravel area, is an acceptable area, but no, if it's not, like Todd said, where do you stop? I could concrete the whole place. I mean, you have to park clear out the outfield to come in. So, I mean, there's been a lot of definitions there that's hard, but, I mean, we feel very confident in what we put together. And when I say this, it's behind the backstop from dugout to dugout. That we've got a really good plan put together. And it wasn't me that put it together, it was the group from the athletic department and Josh that uses it. We just kind of built it from there, so, jump in here.
No, you're exactly right.
I'm willing to get all the numbers, I just haven't had the opportunity to put it all together. And I just got the idea that these numbers are gonna be close, and we want to move on.
Well, yeah.
Also make a commitment with the bleacher company. They're out of Strasburg, the same company, they're a single source company. And I can't tell you that number, but don't hold me to exactly, but it's around 11.5 for the bleachers installed. After we get all the concrete pads and pylons and stuff that they need for anchoring. So, I mean, we've got the first step basically done. It just takes a long time, we go through the bidding process.
Yeah, and then in all fairness, you know, I'll take the hit on this. I mean, I've been pushing, once we looked at the timeline and things we're up against and working with the city and the permitting process, you know, I've been pushing Mike and his crew to get this process moving, so, you know, that's on me. But, you know, I thought hopefully clearly that I made it clear to the board, by taking on the responsibility of Legion Field, it was gonna be a costly matter. And so that's, you know, but as far as, you know, getting a better breakdown, that, you know, I'll take that responsibility, and we'll get that out to the board tomorrow. It won't be 175,000, but that was just some leeway we put in. And obviously we know the major numbers of the different projects there. But again, it's a time issue that we have to move forward if we're gonna get this done for spring baseball. And it, you know, just for clarity, there's a lot of organizations and people that are gonna be using that facility, not just RE3 high school athletics, but we certainly have the soccer program too, just to assure the board, and I think I've been doing that too, that's certainly a major project we're looking forward in the near future. And we've had, with Mr. Lee and Mr. Bailey, numerous conversations regarding what are we gonna do with those bathrooms at Legion Field. And from remodeling to tearing them down to start a whole new, I know there was plans put together years ago about a whole new bathrooms and concession stands under the current bleachers. So we've been looking at and trying to decide the best direction to go with that too, because believe me, we understand the inadequacy of bathrooms that are there now too, so.
And it's kind of, it's not very comfortable when you're in there and you got people, you know, you're in school board and you're wondering, when are you gonna get this stuff fixed?
Sure.
Because
Sure. Well, that's why it'll be great down in the future, once we actually own all that property. There won't be any question about who owns what, where the boundary lines are, what responsibilities, how do we have to work with the city. And so that'll be a real plus for us next year, when hopefully that all gets final approval.
Yes, sir. Short for the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's the federal law that lays down how things are supposed to be built so people who are in wheelchairs and have other disabilities have access to bathrooms, to buildings, sporting venues, in all public facilities.
So what would it take to get this first phase of it started? I mean, you mentioned the 11.5 for the bleachers, but that doesn't include the concrete and all of that.
We were actually gonna start on the concrete this week, Connie.
But, so we don't have, we have a dollar amount for that. I mean, what's the first phase cost?
I didn't bring any of that with me, it was roughly 35,000,
31. 31.
31,000 for all the cement, dugout to dugout.
What's in our capital replacement plan for the Legion Field improvements, and this is discussion late last spring for our 17-18, was ball field improvements and concession stand bleachers / movable bleachers. We earmarked $40,000 for the Legion Field improvements. Obviously, the project has expanded since then. And the other thing is, just earmarking was Legion Field bathroom home site, 100,000, Legion Field bathroom visitor site, 80,000. So those numbers are in there. They're holding place numbers. You know, can we build a new nice home bathroom for $100,000?
But the 50,000 for the bleachers to $175,000 is a big jump for the, the fences and it just, yeah.
You're saying it is a big number?
Oh, it's just a big number. It's just a big number, not visualizing what the breakdown is. So, and I know you were the guy left standing, you know, the rest of the committee isn't here tonight.
No. It was short notice, I mean, I was asked to put it together, I know, and we talked about it. Probably should have been better informed, but we have a very short window. I'm getting a lot of pressure from the coaches. I mean, we are out of time. I mean, I'm hoping that we can actually get this pulled off. I mean, we've taken a lot of the work on internally to save the cost. Getting rid of the old bleachers, and we've talked about doing some of the siding on it to save some costs. It takes some planning, and we've got our own day-to-day activities we need to do, and it saves a lot of money, so I mean, there's a lot
No,
of
I totally understand. I
hurdles
just,
here. So, I apologize, it wasn't very well put out, but I guess felt like it was.
Yeah, that's not your fault, that's my fault, so don't worry about that.
no, it's not. Like I said, you're the guy left standing.
And if the board's more comfortable putting a number on it, we'll work with the number. There's some things that we don't necessarily have to do. It's just a matter of, we thought they made sense to do it if we, in the timeline that we had to get ready for spring baseball. But obviously, we have to do the ADA things, we have to get the bleachers in place, ready to go, and the concrete pour. The other things, if the board, just wants to give us a dollar amount, we'll work within that dollar amount.
I'm comfortable the way it is.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and take a vote. We have roll call, please. We have a
Just
motion and a second.
one quick final thing, if, when you look at that draft of the agreement, the issue is we make improvements to a facility that we don't own, that bears some risk, but there's a reimbursement formula in from the city. If the city bails out on us and kicks us off, they've got to make a reimbursement to us, kind of on a depreciated annual basis of what our original investment was compared to the years that have passed. So year one, we spent $175,000, and year two, they kick us out. They gotta reimburse us 29/30ths of that $175,000. And the agreement also says that the city has to approve these improvements during the lease term, so we can't just go out arbitrarily and spend a bunch of money. But your protection as a board is that if they pull the plug on RE3, that they're gonna be committed to reimburse us for that depreciated, it's not really depreciation, it's more of it's a lease term amortization, I guess would be the more correct terminology for that. So there is a protection back from RE3 from the city on an early termination of that lease. We open a year we're the total owner of the facility, but we don't know that. what if the voters don't approve the transfer? So that's your protection from capital investments that might be,
So the city has to agree to this capital improvement, have they done that?
Yes, yeah.
They have already?
I was gonna say that this is the first time in my career I've ever got a permit in 3 weeks. How we did it?
Well,
Because I was getting pushed pretty hard, I told him, ain't gonna happen. but-
Yeah. Well, Jeff and I have had numerous conversations over this, and he's worked through the planning process, planning and zoning process, and he knows that, again, because of the time frame we're up against, they've been very cooperative working with these permits, that they're very aware of what we're doing and very supportive of it.
Thank you, Mike. Can we have roll call, please?
Mm-hmm. Mr. Gerken.
Aye.
Mr. Keller.
Aye.
Mrs. McLean.
Aye.
Mr. Schneider.
Aye.
Mr. Sharp.
Aye.
Dr. Smits.
Because I trust Mike Bailey. Aye.
And Mrs. Weingarten.
So we'll look forward to seeing those numbers though, so that we know what we're,
I'll get them to Ron,
Great.
he'll get them to you, I assume.
that's fine, and I know some of them are not locked in, but just so that we know what we're agreeing
I think that's fair.
to pay for.
I won't let you down.
I know you won't, you never have, so thank you, Mike, appreciate that.
Thanks, guys.
I'm sorry we didn't mean to.
No, sorry, Mike.
You did good, thank you.
Next time, tell Kyle and Josh to come stand
Well,
beside you.
I do know it was a last minute deal, but I mean, spring sports is coming up very quick, and there is a lot of work, so I encourage you all to go by and see. I mean, it's not an overnight project.
I went and took a look at it this afternoon.
And they got some really neat ideas, so when we get it put together, I think it's gonna be very well respected.
That's good. Well, I know it's something that has needed to be done over there. I've gotten too many splinters on those bleachers.
They were dangerous.
They were dangerous. They actually were.
We started taking them apart.
So, that's
It was a
good.
blessing that the city never had a lawsuit like Todd said.
Yeah.
Because they were bad, and they didn't make any codes.
No, it was a mess. Thank you very much.
Take a cookie, you earned it.
Take two. Not that easy, Nicole.
Take a root beer. Okay, moving right along. Action item E, consideration to approve a donation from the Colorado Humanities, and you do have a copy of that check there before you.
I move we approve.
I'll second.
So this is for the Mother Reed book support, which is a nice donation, $1,700. So, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, a roll call, please.
Mr. Gerken.
Aye.
Mr. Keller.
Aye.
Mrs. McLean.
Aye.
Mr. Schneider. Mr. Sharp.
Aye.
Dr. Smits.
Aye.
Mrs. Weingarten.
Aye. Action item F, consideration to approve a grant award from the El Pomar Foundation. And you have a copy of the check and the letter there before you.
Move to approve?
Second.
Any questions or comments? This is for the step-by-step teen parent program. Again, another nice contribution to assist with that program. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Gerken.
Aye.
Mr. Keller.
Aye.
Mrs. McLean. Mr. Schneider.
Aye.
Mr. Sharp. Dr. Smits. Mrs. Weingarten.
Aye. You have before you information items, monthly reports from several of our schools, and a newsletter from Sherman Early Childhood. Advanced planning, our next regular meeting will be here. This is kind of our changing of the guard. It will be. December 4th. The district support center will be closed for Thanksgiving, November 23rd and 24th. There's a DAC meeting in December on the 14th. CASB annual conference, November 30th to December 3rd. Who's going to that at this point? A few of us had
So
Tara
Derek and Melissa
and Ron
and Terry,
and Terry.
our new board member, and Ron. And I think that's it
So we'll
right
have
now.
At least some representative.
Yes.
Representation there. Thank you. I'm sorry that I will not be able to make it this year. There is a special Board of Ed meeting on December 15th here at the District Support Center. That is a 7 a.m. meeting. So, yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you there. And
So the national conference, those registrations will take place probably the first part of December. So I'll need to know fairly quickly if you're interested in going. April 7th through 9. Mhm. And the other date that I did not get on this list is there will be a Thanksgiving dinner, and that will be I think it's the Wednesday before, no, it would be the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Which school is it?
And I can't remember. Carol told us the other day, but I can't remember.
And I will be out of town next week, so.
So I will email you with that date and time and location, okay?
You have one more question for us? Well, what we do is we approve the donation, that we're willing to accept the donation. Sometimes when you get a donation, that there's things attached to it that we would have to follow through on our end or something, but we want to make sure that we accept that donation from somebody, that there's no conflicts when somebody else, you're the money guy, Mike, when that money comes in, so that we're willing to accept that money from somebody for these programs. A lot of times they're very specific about what the money is going to be spent on.
Yeah, a lot of times we get donations, and it might be to buy a piece of equipment, so the board has to acknowledge that we're gonna take this donation, and then by taking that donation, they commit that they're gonna do exactly what the person who gave the money to the district intended. It was to buy a bus or to build a new piece of equipment. By them accepting the gift, they're committing to do exactly what the person wanted who gave the money. That's why the board has to approve those.
And I commend you because you've been our best student representative. Probably in all the years I've been on this board, so thank you for coming tonight.
Exceptional. Well done.
Yeah, we were really glad to have you here. And with that, we will adjourn our meeting.